loves, welcome to the studio. I just want to give a quick energy update. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. For those of you who haven't seen these videos, welcome back if you have. My intention is the highest levels of love light. I just want to roll right into it. It's a quick energy update. I am planning on doing more videos. I've been really tired. I've been processing a lot of, we could call them upgrades, downloads, activations, realizations, aha moments. And so it's taken a bit for me to, it's still taking a bit for me to unpackage it all, so to speak. It's morning for me right now. I've been doing a lot of sessions. For those of you out there who do healing sessions or psychic sessions or channeling or mediumship, energy work, whatever it might be, counseling, or just being in that space where you know you are in that reality, right? Whatever job or interaction you have, even as a parent, maybe your children are going through a lot right now, or you're a caretaker for a parent. There's so much that's coming in right now. It's very important to integrate it and to just take care of yourself. And so I found myself, my butt got kicked a little bit this week, and I'm not even through the week yet. Part of me would say, well, just take the week and regroup. And I'm not quite there yet, but I have obligations and I have made commitments. But I will say that if for example, for me, and I'm using this as an example, if I feel to the point where I feel totally exhausted, I will then take a day and say, I'm sorry, I'll have to reschedule these sessions. Now, I go in and out. So for example, I was completely exhausted yesterday, but then today I feel pretty good because I gave myself the opportunity to reset. And a lot of people aren't. I'm watching them run themselves ragged. And while that might have been easier to do in an old paradigm, it isn't anymore, because that isn't a harmonious, fifth-dimensional way of existence. It is a 3D, better, bigger, better, stronger, faster mentality. So it's not necessarily saying, okay, I'm just going to shut everything down, although some people need to do that. Some people can't do that for whatever reason, or they feel that they can't or perceive that they can't. And it's just important to take as much time, so to speak, as we need right now to reset our buttons. And that might just mean taking a bath, going for a walk outside, just for 10 minutes and not looking at the phone, and trying to just clear the mind and focus on the breath. There's a lot of different tools and little tricks that we can use to trick, to open, to expand ourselves, to get out of our head. And there's a lot of things coming up that anything that's out of balance is really being highlighted right now. But it's also being cleared very quickly. So if we can recognize that this is going on and not hang on to it, we can clear it very quickly. I'm seeing the old school, so to speak, kind of crashing against the new paradigm, the new way of being. The old school was to analyze and think and analyze and recognize and then digest and talk about it. And from my perspective, the new way of interacting is let it go, let that shit go. Now, it's okay, from what I've been seeing, yeah, talk about it, get it out there, whatever it might be, speak it into the reality instead of having it hanging out in our heads. And I'm talking about recognizing our own frustrations or downloads or life experiences. I'm not talking about our feelings of frustration with somebody else who's going through their own stuff right now. We can speak our truth in such a way that it is harmonious with who we really are, and not a clash of old school and new school. And that was something valuable I learned, again, recently as well. There's this old school, so I'll back up just for a moment. What I'm seeing in sessions is that people are in a deep resistance. They are either in a resistance because they're still hanging on to the disclosure paradigm. They're waiting for that shoe to drop. I'm speaking about family and friends, myself. I was in that. And I'm not saying that the shoe isn't going to drop at some point, but the question becomes, what are we doing right now to be the change? Or are we focused on what we are hoping the world will do to change and then ripple back so that we can see it? So that's still a really big conversation topic that I'm having with other light workers. There is a certain amount of trauma that has happened because of the disclosures that have been revealed to those of us that know about what's really going on. But there's also a certain level of those true stories of the truth that are being milked, so to speak, because they are so focused on these truths being revealed that they're creating this traumatic energy around these truths in such a space that people are unable to unhook from that reality complex or matrix. Because it is a matrix. It is a rabbit hole filled with tangled up webs. Not to say that it isn't something that needs to be dissolved, integrated, revealed. But again, that is not the only thing out there. What's in here, my question is always with these light workers, family, friends, and I had to ask myself, why? Why is it this the way it is? And the ultimate answer is, it's all a distraction. So this began in the first place to create a distorted field so that we would be in such a place of darkness that we would miss the bigger picture. We would feel it was all harnessing, I'm just going to go there, harnessing negative energy, so to speak, and perpetuating all of this negativity and darkness. Why? Why in the world would that be a goal of somebody, an organization? And the answer is power, but the ultimate answer is we are the power source. So I always bring this up because we are the power source. If we are the power source, then what are we creating? How are we creating? What are we bringing to the table? Where are we creating from? Our bodies, our imagination, our intention, our heart space is the power source. And if that is the truth at the heart of the matter, M-A-T-T-E-R, the truth of the heart of the vibration, then all of that other stuff is or was or is being created, so to speak, to distract us from that, or to pull from that, to harness that energy. So if all of us are focusing purely on stories, then our energy is still being harnessed, whether we recognize it or not. Does that make sense? So if we are in a place of anger, fear, rage, disappointment, depression, because of all the traumatic things that we are reading, even if we have this feeling of hope, but it's surrounded by frustration, that is a lower frequency vibration that is essentially being utilized. And who is utilizing it? That's not what this video is about. My point is, if we're not utilizing it, then something, somebody, some other system is. So we're really being invited to step back and create our own realities. I know the light's kind of weird right now, but so as we create these realities, we then are we're the ones making the choice of where we want to create from, what we want to create. And the message that came through this week for me, because other sessions I've had with light workers, oftentimes we will have these magical or mystical experiences and we won't believe that they're real, or somebody else bursts our bubble. And then we go, oh, well, that was just my imagination. Our imagination is power. Thoughts are energy. And thoughts are not in our head. They are out all around us from one perspective. So if we're not creating our own thoughts, using our own imagination, whose thoughts are we telepathically tapping into that we are then pulling into our reality? And that's a whole other video too. But I'm just throwing these little things out there to share what's come up for me this week and what I've been seeing in session with other people. So when we are imaging and thinking about an image over and over and over again, oftentimes it shows up for us in our reality to then prove to us or validate what we are seeing, thinking, feeling, hearing, because we are creators. And that would be the easiest way for me to describe what I see or what I've been shown. And it is practice, because I do manifest things very quickly, and sometimes I go, wow, I must not have been focusing on what I was supposed to be focusing on, or what, let me rephrase that. Supposed to be wouldn't be the right word, but I must not have been focusing on what was truly my power source, because I've now pulled this into my life. But I recognize that I'm the one that manifested it. So this is something else that I'm moving forward into, which is taking responsibility for our manifestations and recognizing that oftentimes, find a spot where the sun isn't. Oftentimes, that didn't work. I'll find it. What we are manifesting is coming from us, and not blaming or taking responsibility. So I'm sharing this because there's those that are not taking responsibility for what they're manifesting. They're blaming it on everybody else and continually focusing on what they don't want. And then this continues to perpetuate what they don't want. So these are just things to think about. These are things I've seen for myself, but also for other people. Okay. So there we go. Now the light's not too crazy. I'm going to park just for a moment. So let me get focused. Some people are they're in it. They're in the thick of it. Everything's falling apart for them. Or they're in a massive upheaval. And it can be in one part of their life, or it can be in all aspects of their lives. I'm meeting and working with people, all of the above. Things that are not in alignment with who we really are really showing up for us right now in a blatant, in-your-face kind of way for some people. For me, that's happened too. And what I'm finding is it's judgment and perception. So there's a lot of people that are kind of going back to like the gifts and abilities. If someone else bursts our bubble, we are looking for that person to validate our experience. And that validation is not going to happen in necessarily the way that we want it to, because oftentimes what gets validated is the fact that it's our imagination. So we don't believe it. The person comes up to us and says, oh, it's just your imagination. And we go, oh, okay, I thought so. Because that's an example of this validation, right, of our belief. So I'll do another video on all of the things that came through for me about imagination, because it was pretty wild and fun. So I'm just going to stay here, otherwise I'm going to have to move again. There's people coming. So I'm finding that from my perspective, I always talk about things in a multidimensional way. So I'm very open. There are certain things I don't resonate with or I don't agree with. There's a lot of people who have jumped onto that, I don't resonate with that. And I'm finding that a lot in sessions. Not a lot, but here and there. Because they are not seeing things from a quantum perspective. They are seeing things from one layer. And maybe that reality is they are a nurse, and because of their experience as a nurse, these other things such as Reiki or energy work, they don't really work. They're just a placebo. Okay, but placebos work, and spontaneous healing does happen. And that would be an example of somebody who is very knowledgeable. They're basing their reality on their life experiences and what they've experienced. But there is so much that we haven't experienced in this lifetime, or more importantly, that we haven't seen or acknowledged that is going on all around us in the quantum field. I have met so many people that have gone their whole lives without recognizing any synchronicities and seeing it all as a coincidence. And what's happening also is there are those that I speak with who we can talk about what's going on emotionally, but if we go into a galactic representation, or if I share with someone, for example, that they're really connected to the elemental realm, and they might want to consider crystals, that can even be woo-woo for some people. And when I say that, when we make a judgment around something as conspiracy, woo-woo, not real, not logical, those are perspectives and beliefs that create a box that limit our capacity for further knowing and understanding, because it creates this wall, so to speak. And this has been going on through propaganda for a long time. Just because someone is ready for the next stage of their awareness doesn't mean that they are emotionally mature enough. Mature, I'm not saying this with judgment, like, oh, you're not mature enough. I mean, mature as in, or we could even go further and just say open-minded. Some people see open-mindedness as a weakness. From my perspective, I see it as a tool, because it opens up the possibilities of seeing things from a different perspective that is more fluid, less wall reality. So we have a clash going on of the old paradigm and the new paradigm. We have a clash going on of the traditional medicine and new age woo-woo, and finding that balance. We have a clash going on of this is reality, and this is how it exists, and what you're talking about is crazy. I mean, it's really very interesting. I am older. I have done this. I know more than you do, because you are younger and you have had less education, life experience, fill in the blanks. So I'm here to share that many of the younger people that are coming in are well equipped and more knowledgeable than much of the old generation in a completely different way. I might be able to talk to my dad about fixing a car, and he's much more knowledgeable mechanically than I am. Yet, if I were to talk with him about the elemental realm, the galactics, the angelics, and how energy looks to me, he would think I'd lost my marbles. And that's an example of maturity. I can accept that he is more mechanically knowledgeable, and then I can go to a mechanic and say, thank you for helping me fix this that I don't know anything about. Yet can that mechanic say, that's interesting, that's interesting, and not come from a place of that doesn't resonate with me. That person may not even know what the word resonate is, and that's okay. But there's this section of beings, people who are used to being in an authoritative space, and they are kind of in this place of 3D, 4D, and I don't like using the dimensional paradigm example, but it's helpful. This is not coming from a place of judgment, but they're seeing, well, this is how angelic works. This is the hierarchy. This is what this means. And that's shifting, because if reality is not the same as it ever was now, then the reality that we know that has changed. And that's a whole other video too, because then we get into time. Time doesn't exist. We get into quantum, and maybe we'll do a video on that sometime. My point is, there are people out there who are ready for a shift, and then they have the shift, and then they go, no, that's not real. Or no, I'm not ready for that. Or this person can't help me because they don't believe the same thing I believe. Because it takes them out of their safety of judgment, ego, belief, perspective, and so on. So one of the biggest challenges that many are going to face or are facing is getting out of that judgment about themselves, others, or stories. Getting out of the need to fit in a certain box. Well, I am this, therefore I know this. I'm hearing, you know nothing, Jon Snow. We don't. We are babies to some of this, yet we are also masters embodied, right? We are both. Some people are afraid to accept their power because maybe lifetime after lifetime they were burned at the stake because they were a witch or they were a shaman and they were shamed, you know. Lots of Game of Thrones references here. Shame. No, I did not just watch that, but I think there's just a lot of symbols in this. The dragon's eggs. That's a very symbolic show representation of so much. Anyways, so what happens is people are being gifted the opportunity to step into their power, but they have so much fear around their own power that it's easier to, they think it's easier to stay in that space, and it feels safer to almost not be so expansive because it is expansive. Or in this lifetime, they were taught that that was weird if you believed these things, or they were taught that you would go to hell if you believed these things, or they were taught that, or their parents said, this person is weird, was crazy Aunt Edna who happened to wear hippie clothes and do tarot cards. So whatever those attachments to those belief structures are, they're really showing up for a lot of people right now. And for those of us who are crazy Aunt Ednas, it also shakes our belief structure, because are we going to be triggered by these people who are afraid to step into their own power, or who are afraid of us because they don't understand what it is that we are doing? So there's so many things. This is a very all over the place video because the energy is all over the place. So not only are their beliefs being the people that we are working with and assisting, or that are in our lives, our beliefs about our abilities are also being tested is not necessarily the right word, but that's what it feels like sometimes. How are you going to feel about this? Are you going to put judgment and blame on yourself for whatever that is? So we're really being invited to stabilize our fields and energy and frequency in the best way that we can, and if we are destabilized for a little bit, try not to beat ourselves up too much, because even though we have, many of us have stepped into our own power, that isn't perfection in how we handle it always. We are all perfect in God's eyes, right, so to speak, but that doesn't mean that we're always going to handle our life experiences in the perceived perfection or definition of perfection. So we're still, part of this is just about being in flow. So I'm going to end on that. When we're in a space of acceptance and flow, and we're not in a place of resistance, it's easier for us to feel into how to respond to what is being presented to us and how it's being presented to us. We're less likely to react and to fall into the toroidal fields of everybody else's tornadoes right now. Because there's a lot of little tornadoes, a lot of little tidal waves, a lot of little tsunamis that are everywhere right now. And it's very easy to get sucked or blown off course, or to get swept up in the tidal wave of emotions, of collective dramas, of client dramas, all of that. But again, what are we thinking about? What are we creating from? How are we feeling? Are we feeding our bliss? Are we feeding our joy? Are we giving each other spaces, even if they believe that galactics are not real? Are we judging them for their own, what we might refer to as lack of maturity in that area? Again, play with the word maturity. Maturity for some people means I am mature. What I mean is the ability to be expansive and open-minded also comes with the responsibility of not judging others for not being expansive and open-minded. That is also maturity. So that's one of the biggest words that's been coming through about this. Maturity is finding the balance of inner child and receptivity, as well as finding our mastery, so to speak. So there's so much, guys. This was just a quick energy update. I'll be doing another video, hopefully. I'm back in the flow a little bit today or tomorrow. So if you're interested. In love and light, guys. Namaste. And I'm still responding to messages. And so thank you. I will be hopefully responding to those this weekend. So in love and light, guys. Stay afloat. Be like seaweed, yet anchored like a tree at the same time. I'm seeing be like a palm tree right now. What do palm trees do when there's a storm? They'll bend all the way over, almost onto the ground. Sometimes they got to lose their coconuts in order to create space and not be so back and forth. So that's kind of where I'm seeing our tree references right now. Because the storm is here. The storm is a-coming. We are... I'm hearing we are Storm. I'm seeing the, what's that character Storm from the comic books. She rocks. Anyways, I've got more stuff to share later, and I love you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.